You sat in the waiting room for 40 minutes, and then the appointment itself lasted 7. You had 3 things you wanted to ask, and somehow you left having only mentioned one of them, already forgotten by the time you reached the car. If you have ever walked out of a doctor's office feeling unheard, this video is for you. Feeling unheard by a doctor is one of the most quietly frustrating experiences a person can have, because it involves your health, your body, the thing that matters more than almost anything else. And yet the conversation often feels rushed, one-sided, and over before you have had the chance to say what you actually came to say. This is not because you are difficult or because your concerns are not important. Modern medical appointments are often genuinely short, doctors are frequently overloaded, and the whole system is not always designed around giving you the time you actually need. But here is what matters. There are real, practical, learnable techniques that dramatically change how much you get out of every single appointment, techniques that have nothing to do with being pushy or difficult, and everything to do with communicating clearly, efficiently, and in a way that works with how a medical appointment is actually structured. None of what follows requires you to become a different kind of person in that room. You do not need to be assertive by nature, or comfortable with confrontation, or naturally good at speaking up under pressure. These are simple, repeatable habits, the kind that work precisely because they do not depend on how you're feeling on any given day. Prepare the same way every time and the appointment tends to go better every time, almost regardless of how rushed the doctor happens to be. And the very first tip changes almost everything about how the whole appointment goes. Tip 1: write your concerns down before you walk in. The single biggest reason people leave appointments having forgotten to mention something important is walking in without a plan. In the moment, with a doctor asking questions and time moving quickly, it is remarkably easy to forget even things that felt urgent an hour earlier. Here is the habit that changes everything. Before your appointment, the night before or that morning, write down every single thing you want to discuss. Not in your head, on paper, or in your phone in a simple list. Put the most important concern at the very top, because if time runs short, you want to be certain the thing that matters most got addressed first. This single habit means you walk in with a plan instead of hoping you remember everything under pressure, and it means nothing important gets left in the waiting room by accident. Keep the list short and honest with yourself about priority. 3 or 4 items clearly ranked will always serve you better than a long list of everything that has crossed your mind in the past month. A doctor can work through a focused list efficiently. A long, unranked list often means the appointment runs out of time before you reach the things that matter most, which defeats the entire purpose of writing it down in the first place. Tip 2: describe symptoms with specifics, not general impressions. There is a significant difference between telling a doctor my knee hurts and telling them my knee hurts most when I climb stairs. It has been happening for about 3 weeks, and it is worse in the morning than the evening. The second version gives a doctor something they can actually work with, because doctors are trained to diagnose based on patterns, timing, and specific detail, not general impressions. Before your appointment, think through each concern with 4 questions in mind. When did this start? What makes it better or worse? How would you rate it or describe exactly what it feels like? And has anything changed recently around the same time it began? You do not need to have this perfectly organized. Even rough notes on these questions will make an enormous difference. The more specific and concrete your description, the faster and more accurately a doctor can actually help you, rather than guessing at something vague. And this next tip is one that most people feel awkward doing, but it changes the entire dynamic of the conversation. Tip 3: ask for things to be repeated or explained differently. Doctors, like everyone in any profession, sometimes slip into language that makes complete sense to them and very little sense to anyone outside their field. And there is a common but mistaken belief that asking someone to explain something again, or explain it more simply, is somehow embarrassing or a sign you were not paying attention. It is neither of those things. It is one of the most important things you can do in that room. If a doctor uses a term you do not recognize, or explains something in a way that leaves you uncertain, simply say, "Could you explain that in a different way? I want to make sure I understand correctly." Good doctors will not be bothered by this. They will actually appreciate that you are engaged enough to want real clarity rather than nodding along and leaving confused. And if a particular doctor does seem irritated by reasonable questions about your own health, that itself is useful information. Tip 4: bring someone with you for important appointments. For appointments that carry real weight, a new diagnosis, a decision about treatment, anything that feels significant, bring someone with you if you possibly can. A second person in the room remembers different things than you do. They ask questions you might not think of in the moment. And critically, they can help you recall the conversation accurately afterward, because it is extremely common to walk out of a significant appointment and only clearly remember a fraction of what was actually said. This is not a sign of needing help managing your own life. It is simply good practice, the same way it is good practice to have a second person present for any conversation with high stakes and a lot of information delivered quickly. If nobody can physically attend with you, consider asking if you can record the conversation on your phone so you can listen back later and catch anything that was said too quickly to fully absorb in the moment. Most doctors are entirely comfortable with either of these approaches, and many will even suggest them if you simply ask. It is worth saying clearly at the start of the appointment, "I would like to record this so I can review it later," or "This is my daughter, she's here to help me remember everything." Being upfront about it removes any awkwardness, and it signals to the doctor that you are taking the appointment seriously, which tends to encourage them to do the same. And this next tip is the one that most changes whether a doctor actually takes your concerns seriously. Tip 5. State the impact on your life, not just the symptom. Doctors are, understandably, trained to prioritize based on urgency and severity. A vague description of discomfort often gets less attention than a description that clearly explains how something is affecting your actual daily life. Instead of simply saying "my back hurts," try saying "my back pain means I can no longer garden," which is something I do every single day and genuinely love. This is not exaggeration or manipulation. It is giving the doctor the full and honest picture of what this symptom actually means for your life, which is genuinely relevant medical information. Because quality of life and functional impact are real factors doctors consider when deciding how seriously to investigate something and how quickly. Stating the impact clearly in specific terms is one of the most effective ways to ensure a concern is not quietly deprioritized. Tip 6. If you feel dismissed, say so directly and calmly. This is the tip that takes the most courage, and it is also one of the most important. If you leave an appointment feeling that a real concern was brushed aside, you are allowed to say, calmly and directly in the moment, "I feel like this concern is not being fully addressed, and I would like to understand why or what the next step should be." You do not need to be confrontational for this to work. A calm, clear, and direct statement is often enough to shift the conversation, because it signals that you are paying close attention and that you expect to be taken seriously. If even after this you consistently feel dismissed by a particular doctor, you are entirely within your rights to seek a second opinion. Feeling heard about your own health is not an unreasonable request. It is the entire point of the appointment in the first place. It is worth remembering, too, that most doctors genuinely want to help and are simply working within a system that does not always give them enough time. A calm and direct statement is rarely received as an attack. Far more often, it is received as exactly the kind of clarity that makes their job easier. You are not the difficult patient for speaking up. You are the patient who made the appointment actually work. Many people currently navigating this were raised in a generation taught to defer completely to doctors, to see questioning a physician as something close to disrespectful, and to accept whatever was said without pushing back, even when something did not make sense or did not feel fully addressed. That deference was passed down as a form of respect. But healthcare today generally works better as a genuine partnership, where the person living inside the body being discussed is treated as an essential source of information, not simply a recipient of instructions. Learning to advocate clearly for yourself is not disrespectful. It is, in many ways, exactly what a good doctor actually wants from the person sitting across from them. And before we finish, the one thing I most want you to take from everything in this video. You are allowed to take up space in your own healthcare. You are allowed to ask questions, ask for clarity, and expect to be heard about your own body and your own life. None of the techniques in this video require confrontation or difficulty. They simply require preparation, clarity, and the confidence to expect the kind of appointment you actually deserve. This week, try just one small thing. Before your next appointment, even a routine one, write down your top concern the night before in one clear sentence and say it first thing when you sit down. That one small habit, practiced consistently, changes far more about how your appointments go than most people expect. If someone you know struggles to feel heard by their doctor, share this with them today. It might make a real difference at their very next appointment. Take care of yourself, and we will see you next time.